I'm Chris Bussing. Welcome to my channel. It's committed to helping more people create a life of freedom and impact through success in sales and the pursuit of self-development. Today, we're talking to Jason Sullivan, who coached me the other day and told me some tips on prospecting that I put into practice, and it helped me land a meeting with a $38 billion grocery chain. And I know firsthand that his tactics work. And we're going to dig into what it takes today to create cold calling magic. And we're also going to talk about the importance of soft skills in terms of helping us succeed in sales, but also improve the quality of our life. And Jason also has a book coming out, Feather Sharpens Iron. It's a pretty cool book title. I love it. But originally, it's going to be a cold calling book. So we're going to start out talking about cold calling and then talk about the importance of soft skills in life. So if you guys get value out of this video, almost done with the spiel, make sure to give the like button a love tap because the YouTube algorithm loves that too. And we'll show this video to more people who could benefit from the message. Subscribe to the channel for weekly videos. I got your back with uplifting content committed to helping you succeed in tech sales and in life. And let's dig into it. Jason, that was a mouthful, but how you doing today? How's your day been?
I'm doing great. Fantastic. Excuse the light. It's where I'm at in Indianapolis right now. The sun's coming through and I'm trying to adjust it. And this is all new for me, but I had to ask you a question. Did you say 38 billion with a B?
Yeah, your techniques, or I don't even know if techniques is the right word because it's really, it comes down to authenticity. And we'll talk more about that. Help me get a meeting with a $38 billion grocery chain that, I mean, it's not that big a deal, but you might have heard of, I'll say it, HEB.
Yeah.
And you know what? The Russian president, I forget when this was, but one of my sales directors told me, came to the United States and went to an HEB. And he thought it was so incredible, the abundance of options that we have in America, that he wanted to change regulations in his own country based on that. So HEB is the real deal. I got a meeting thanks to you. So we're going to dig into that actual email that works. This is going to be fun. Fantastic. I'm going to read it and I'm going to get your insight into what about it worked. But let's start here. Let's talk about cold calling magic.
Sure.
Tell us the story of getting that meeting with Callaway, and you ended up winning the account. But how did that all go down?
So when I started sales, I remember I came in from law enforcement and I was very, very nervous and I didn't think I'd be a good salesperson. I really didn't come in with ambition and drive to be a salesperson. I kind of landed in the job and I had never made a cold call in my entire life. And the industry that I went to was 100% cold calling. It was 100% commission based. It was extremely difficult. There was no lead generation. There was very little marketing collateral. It was literally cold calling 101. And I jerked around for the better part of a year and had a few successes, but nothing serious. And one day I had an opportunity to call on Callaway Golf. Now I'm not a golfer, but it was probably the largest household name that I'd called on to date. And it was a big opportunity. And I remembered I was very nervous and I was anxious because you never know what's going to happen, if someone's going to pick up or not, but you always think they are, right? So I sit there, my boss is kind of sitting over to the side while I'm making the call, and I have my notes in front of me and I've got my little script, if you will, because I didn't know any better at the time and I was new. So the phone rings and I can hear my heart beating. And all of a sudden, a gentleman picks up on the other end of the line and he has got a grizzly bear of a voice, extremely intimidating. Now I'm already anxious. Okay. So to hear an aggressive voice pick up the phone, it takes it up a little bit. And he says, hello. And I immediately start in. Hi, my name's Jason Sullivan. I'm working with such and such a company. I'd like to talk to you about, and I got about 20 seconds in and I stopped. And I said, you know what, Darren, screw that. I know who you're using for your packaging. That's what I was selling at the time. You know who my company is. If I give you a quote tomorrow, I'm going to be within 5 or 10% of whatever you're paying for it right now. You know that, and I know that. I said, but how about we go grab a beer one of these days after work and just chit chat? Because the reality is, if you don't like me, you're not going to buy shit from me. Okay. And there's too many people. It's too competitive. So how about giving me a chance? We'll hold off traffic, get a cold beer at the very least. You won't sit in traffic on your way home. And he froze and he didn't say anything. And I was extremely nervous. I don't even know where that came from. And I could feel my boss, who was over to the side, going, holy shit, he just went off script, right? And the next thing you know, there was about a 5-second pause, which felt like 4 hours to me at the time. And he said, Jason, we can do that. We can do that. And I met him for a beer that Friday, and Callaway became my largest account for the better part of 13 years. And we remained friends for several years, and lost him, unfortunately, early to a heart attack. But it was a tremendous learning lesson for me in my life, which was one of the reasons I wanted to originally write the book on cold calling, to basically get off the script. Because the script is where I think most salespeople trip up, frankly.
What a great story. What a way to start this conversation. And let's dig in a little deeper on how a script limits us. What is it about a script that limits our possibilities when it comes to cold calling? And dare I say, in life, if we communicate in a scripted way or live our life according to a set script, what about it limits us?
It's a great way to say it. It makes us robotic. It doesn't make us relatable. And more than anything, people can hear your vocal tone. And if you sound rehearsed, if you sound scripted, they've already checked out. Because you have to imagine the average buyer, the average decision maker that's taking the sales rep's call, they get numbers of those calls. And if you are scripted, you're going to sound too stiff unless you're an outstanding actor, right? Or you've really, really practiced to be natural at some form of script. It just doesn't translate. And I always say this, if you're a salesperson, put yourself in the role of the person you're calling. How do you want to be talked to? How would you listen? Right? It's really that simple. Try to make the call like you're calling a friend, not someone who's got your commission in their hands. Right?
That reminds me of Josh Braun, another great guest like yourself that I had. And he said, customers can sniff out commission breath from a mile away. And I feel
Absolutely.
like that metaphor of commission breath, when they sense that you're so caught up on the transaction, you value that over a relationship and over the best interest of the customer. Anything to riff on off of that point?
Absolutely. I had first heard that, I think, 3 months ago from somebody as well. I didn't know it was Josh's, but I almost fell off the chair because it's such a great way to say it. And there's a couple different ways to look at that. The desperation in your breath, right? Don't look like it's just about the sale. There's different ways to look at it. But the reality is just when you're calling someone, they take so many calls. I always felt it would be best to just be natural and say what you're feeling, say it quickly. There's just a couple principles on cold calls you need to follow. And those best practices are well known, right? And I can go over those.
Yeah, let's go over those principles. And I'm going to, before that though, I'm going to share, we were talking offline, a cold call opener that worked for me that I realized I hate cold calling. This sucks because cold calling is unnatural. Yep. But what's great in life is if we can stretch ourselves outside our comfort zone and make a habit of doing that, which is unnatural, we can get unnatural results. So we know that it's worthwhile, making these calls, but it's unnatural. It's uncomfortable. And I just flat out said this. I said, hey, Liz, this is Chris. I'm calling from Bestman Global. I honestly hate making cold calls probably as much as you hate receiving them. Do you have 15 seconds for me to tell you why I'm calling? So to your point, I think just owning that this sucks. So is that a principle? What are your, let's go on to the couple principles that you think people need to remember.
First is keep them short, right? They should always be short, right? The second is let the individual know why you're calling right away. Okay. You got to get right to it because again, I say, put yourself as picking up a strange phone call. We've all been victim to a bad cold call where somebody wants to take us laps around the pool before they get to the point while we're sitting there and they're just talking and we have no interest. So that by the time they get to what they want to talk about, we're already pissed off because they didn't recognize the tone in our voice or the attitude, and they just kept talking to get out their scripted speech, right? So basically, you're just going to jump right in and say, hey, my name's Chris. I'm calling from such and such, and I wanted to talk to you about, right? And what I liked what you said was, do you have 15 seconds? And any of your listeners right now, if there's anything I've always thought really worked well for me in my 22 years of it, and I still make cold calls, is whenever you can put a time frame with somebody on a meeting or a phone call that's short, you have their attention. 15 seconds sends a signal directly and subconsciously that you are cognizant and aware you don't want to take a long time, right? I often on LinkedIn messages or emails when I'm reaching out to somebody say, hey, do you have 5 minutes? That's all I need is 5 minutes. I've been in sales presentations before where people have taken their phone and put it on the stopwatch and turned it on at the beginning. And I'll never forget this. I was actually getting a presentation given to me from a vendor, and he turned his phone on. And I said, "What the hell are you doing?" And he said, "I told you on the phone I only needed 5 minutes, and I want to stick to that 5 minutes."
Wow. Isn't that one of the best ways to build rapport or trust with a customer is to respect their time?
Absolutely. You tell somebody 15 seconds, they go, "Chris gets it. He's going to get right to the point and he's not going to jerk around." Right? That's it.
One thing I love to do on discovery calls is I
Mhm.
confirm the time again up front. Like, Dimitri, you'd said we had 30 minutes. Does that still work for you? Do you have a hard stop?
Yep.
And then once I get towards the end,
Mhm.
I try and finish a couple minutes early to give them the gift of time back. Or if we're having a great conversation, we're going to project to go over, I will check in to see if we need to wrap it up and if they have a hard stop, or maybe I confirm the beginning. And I actually do that on these podcasts as well. So we'll see if I
Yep.
need to check in with you as we just enjoy this conversation. It continues to flow.
You
But
made a great
yeah.
point. You made a great point. You say, "Hey, Dimitri, is 30 minutes still good?" Dimitri says, "Sure is, Chris. I always like to do something like this. Fantastic, because I really only need 10 minutes, Dimitri." Now you see what
Oh,
you're doing to the mind, right? You're peeling back that expectation right there. You're getting somebody going, "Wow, this is refreshingly different," right?
yes, man.
It,
So have you had presentations where in big time presentations where you finish like that would be 20 minutes early, right? I sometimes might finish a couple minutes early or
yeah.
5. Have
Mhm.
you had that happen where you finish that early?
What you realize when you've been in sales as you get older, this just happens as a result of age and time in the industry and in the profession of sales, is that the attention span of the average person is about a few minutes, right? And the longer you go, and this is one of the most common mistakes that are made in presentations, and I happen to teach exceptional presentations professionally. So it's something that I speak very confidently and I feel really good about, is we make our PowerPoints, our deck presentations too long. We have our presentations about who we are and what our companies are too long. And in reality, and this is your telltale sign, Chris, and for everybody who's listening, you could take any 30-minute presentation and make it 5 minutes. You could make it 3 minutes. You could do it in an elevator pitch. The reality is this: if your audience is interested, whoever you're talking to, they'll keep you going. That's how you know if a cold call is successful, if a meeting was successful, by the questions and the time they put into wanting to hear more from you.
So I definitely want to hear more from you, and this audience does too. Thank you for the folks who are showing up live and the people who will see this in the future as this floats out into the YouTube sea. How do you do an elevator pitch? And I'm thinking specifically when you get them to give you that 15 seconds or that time on the cold call.
Mhm.
I don't know if we'd call it an elevator pitch, but you need to frame value. You need to hook them to get
Yep.
the meeting, to get a
Mhm.
beer with you.
Yep.
So is there a principle or a lens through which you look to frame that value?
No, in all honesty, I've only had to give an elevator pitch one time in my life. One time. And I'll never forget what happened is I ran into the president of a company in the lobby when I was going in to meet with some engineers for a project.
That is a real elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I went, "Holy shit, here it is. This is an elevator pitch moment," right? And the only reason
Yeah.
I knew it was the president is because I saw his picture on the wall,
Wow.
right? And he's standing in the lobby, he's talking to the receptionist. So I stood up real quickly and I said, "Excuse me, Mr. So and so." And he turned to me and he said, "Yeah, how can I help you?" And I said, "Hey, I have a meeting in about 5 minutes with some of your engineers on a new project. Is there any chance you could share anything with me that I might be able to blow their hair back with when I get back there? Is there anything coming up on your desk that I could maybe mention to separate myself from the herd?" I didn't know what else to do, right? I just wanted to see if I could get this gentleman to share something with me, knowing that I was nervous and anxious and excited. And I wanted to try to be my best for his engineers on a new project. And I was looking for some type of hack from him, right? And he looked at me and I'll never forget, he smiled and he said, "Tell them, ask them about the Y2K when you're talking to them. And that will impress them that you know that, because none of your competitors will know that."
Wow.
And it's a classic example of if you don't ask or try, you don't know. I wasn't rehearsed anything other than I saw a moment, and you know this, your listeners know this if you've read books, if you've talked to anybody, and you seized it, right? You took a shot. That could have just as easily blown up in my face, right?
It seems like a lot of your strategy is purely be authentic, go for it, make an ass, but be respectful.
Yes.
And you don't know till you don't try. I noticed that it seems like you look at excitement and anxiety as the same thing. Aren't they the same physiologically? I had a guy reach out and said, he wants to work on nerves for when it comes to cold calling. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on how to, from a mindset perspective, deal with cold calling nerves.
Nerves and excitement are the exact same physiology, the same biochemical reaction in the body, right? So I think that I've read a couple places, instead of, dealing with that anxiety, try to manifest that into saying, I'm not nervous about this presentation. I'm actually excited about it, right? I'm excited about it because it's the same emotional response, but yet you're tricking the brain into trying to take a more positive approach to it. With cold calling, all I would ever do is this: take a deep breath, right? And realize this: the other person on the other end of the phone or the virtual meeting for the first time, they don't know a thing about you. They don't know who Chris Bussing or Jason Sullivan are. They have no idea, right, who I am as a person. Whatever attitude you get, whatever vocal tone you may be perceiving as something negative or aggressive, they don't know you as a person. And you also don't know them. You don't know if they were just reprimanded by their boss. You don't know if their girlfriend or boyfriend just broke up with them that morning. You don't know if they just found out that their mother got a diagnosis with terminal cancer, right? So to depersonalize the call is actually the only thing I ever could do to be more comfortable and realize I'm just calling another guy or gal who puts their pants on one leg at a time. And this is what we do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I actually put my pants on two legs at a time. No, I'm kidding.
That's why you're going to be so much
more
I love it.
So mindset is such a big part of success, isn't it? Like, it's not about these scripts,
right,
or these little tactics, but working on ourselves at a deeper level, our mindset, our character, and we're capable of great things right here and right now if we choose to focus on who we are being. Is there anything you would add to that on how to the mindset or required to kind of shift how you're being? I'm kind of fishing right here, but if you want to riff on this.
Well, the one thing I want to say is this, and part of the reason I wanted to write the book is I get frustrated with so many of the TikTok professionals or the people who make lots of money off of your listeners by buying their books or their things of that nature, because much of what I've learned has taken time. And you can educate yourself, but it comes down to reps, right? You've got to have the muscle memory and the repetitions of getting those phone calls to become more comfortable, right? You do yourself a good service by educating and talking to people who've done it. But oftentimes the expectation becomes unreasonable because you can't take a 23-year-old straight out of school or otherwise into a sales role, have them read a book or listen to some expert, and then all of a sudden just hit the ground running, right? It's okay to make mistakes. That's part of the process for your younger, newer salespeople on the cast, right?
Yep. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And you don't really, I say this all the time, but you don't learn how to ride a bike by reading about it or at a seminar. You get on the bike and you ride, and you might fall off. And it's the same with cold calling. It's just impossible to transmute all your wisdom today into a younger person, have them immediately operate at your level, but they could learn something, and that's progress. And then they can be inspired to take action. And eventually when they get to your stage in your career, they will have reached a different level. But it's just a good point to have like healthy expectations that a part of the journey is failing and failing forward.
It's a large part of it. And that's what I want to make sure, at least when I talk to people, when I'm coaching or I'm training, there was the old 110-1 rule. And I think you and I talked about this. You'll make 100 calls to get 10 people to actually listen to get one appointment from it. And that's not even necessarily a project. Yeah. Those aren't good odds, right? And you have the younger generations, the 20-somethings right now, they're like, I don't want to use the phone for 4 hours with those odds. It doesn't seem like a very good use of time, right?
Yes.
Here's the reality. It takes one call, just one call to change your pay period, your month, your career, right?
What could go right? That's the thing. One call to land Callaway.
Correct.
You know,
that's right.
one call to land OfferUp, which was a $10 million deal for me at Google Cloud. It was actually my first cold call, and I didn't even get the meeting right away. It was the first, earned the opportunity to follow up for the new CTO who came into town, and it took 3 more months to get the meeting with them, but I followed up.
Yep.
And so what could go right? It
Yeah.
is so worth putting ourselves out there and getting on the phone, getting uncomfortable. In the case we can connect and actually understand too, if someone has an objection, we can actually get to a place of understanding and see if we could move past it. I realized that I want to take this conversation in a bunch of directions. I want to talk about objection handling. I want to talk about how important follow-up is and how many times you typically have to follow up to get a meeting. Best time to call. I'm going to pick one of those paths and we'll try and get to all of them.
Sure.
Okay. So
Sure.
how much following up is really needed to get a meeting? What's the reality of how much persistence it takes to succeed?
I've been told that the magic number is 7 calls. The average sales rep has to make 7 calls at a certain cadence. And I don't know what that is, if that's 1 a week, if that's 2 a week, if what that is, but it's the 7th reach out where someone picks up or connects via email, via LinkedIn, via telephone, or a combination thereof, right? Now, I would probably say when I started, if you made 2 or 3, that was the average then. And with that kind of number, you were never getting to see if persistence would pay off, right? This is truly what separates, and you'd mentioned that fine line between being professionally persistent and a pain in the ass, right? What is that? And that's different. And that's where you have to be a little bit of, you have to be able to kind of read the situation and look at yourself. How frequently do you want someone to reach out? Because again, we're all customers in the world electronically. We get solicited emails and LinkedIn messages all the time, right?
Yes.
At what point does it become bothersome? And do you get the hint that I'm not interested? Are you trying anything different, right? Are you just sending the same generic robotic message every week, every 2 weeks? Or are you doing something to personalize it, right?
Yeah. And what I noticed, I just thought of is that when people follow up with me, it doesn't offend me. I think we think we're being so annoying and bothersome to people.
Correct.
It's not a big deal, and if you, like you said, if you keep it personalized and value driven and you show some thoughtfulness and creativity, eventually you'll probably hook them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, do you have any thoughts on to what levels one might want to infuse personalization or a little bit of creativity into follow-ups?
Right from the beginning. Again,
Okay.
because being different is better than being better. And that's a quote that I heard. And that's what pings someone's limbic. That's what gets them excited or mentally stimulated. That makes you present yourself as, this person's different. Sometimes it's a conscious connection. Wow, Chris had a different approach. Oftentimes it's subconscious, where you just want to take that email, take that LinkedIn message, take that call because you've tried a different approach, right? But here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with saying like this: hey, if I'm being a pain in the ass, please let me know. That's my approach, right? Because here's the reality, Chris. If I'm being a pain in the ass, please let me know, because the truth is I'll stop. But this is how I would say it to you on the phone. I'll stop because I respect that. But you have to understand, I'm only going to stop for a month or 2 because I really, really want your business. And I know no other way but to go for it, right?
Yeah, there's something about showing that desire. I do that myself. I'm like, hey, let me know if I'm being overzealous in the follow-ups, but it's because you're a top priority for me. Yeah. I might even be a little exaggerated, like you're a top priority for us in our US business. Like, I don't know, like, or put it in a broader context to, show that like, it's because like they don't know till we meet us and see we're halfway decent guys, but we want to help. So anyways, want to riff off that?
No, the truth is this. If you say top priority and you caught it, right? That can be almost canon and scripted. And someone could say, yeah, he's just saying that. And this is just semantics. But again, this is my twist on that, to say, I really want your business. Okay?
Ooh, good. I appreciate that coaching.
Yeah, I want your business, Chris. You're not a top priority for me. I'm going to call back. I'll wait. I'll give a cool off period because I get it. I've been a little bit overly persistent. Thanks for letting me know I've been a pain in the ass. I'm going to pause for a month or 2, but I really want your business, right? And to look at them or say it with sincerity in your voice, because here's the bottom line. If you don't mean it, it will never translate. I don't give a shit how good you are or how smooth you are. You have to mean it, right? True, they could be a top priority, But that's a phrase that too many others before you, around you, and swimming in your lanes are using, right?
That
And
is
what that
really good.
says to me as the person picking up your cold call is, I've heard that from 4 of the 14 people who are calling me this week, right?
Yeah.
Just changing it to, I really want your business. Your account is extremely important to me, right?
Yep.
Just a quick tweak.
Yeah, no, I want your business. I'm going to play around with that because there are things that I say that I need to check myself that could be a little subtly scripted. And, even if I know I have a good intention, it's really about perception, in the mind of
Exactly.
the customer. So I wanted to ask you about the best time to make calls, but hold on, we did get a comment in from the audience. So Chris and Jason, does this apply more for account executives? Now we're talking, Jason, in tech sales, so
Yep.
I'll try and give you some context. Does this advice apply more for account executives that run in the full sales cycle, or would this be applicable to an SDR as well? The SDR being the tip of the spear, only metric on setting meetings and building pipelines. So the SDR is not going to be able to go in person. Now they could set up their account executive for in person. He is trying to understand for himself, since he's trying to break into the tech industry as that tip of the spear entry level role.
Right.
So do you think some of these concepts, because this is pretty mature, like you've been a sales leader. Of course, when we're going for whale clients, this does apply to account executives, but is this also accessible to these entry level SDR roles?
I believe it is, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your title. If you're a CEO or a project manager, an SDR, an account executive, it doesn't matter. We're all people, right? You want to talk to people the way that you want to be talked to, right? Far too often, we're given scripts, or sales managers or sales leaders will tell you to zig and zag and how to do things and use what they think are best practices. But it's been used for so long, we've become tone deaf and we check out to it. What I want to get across is, regardless of your role, if you're trying to break through, any way you can personalize, differentiate, show some type of non-averageness, right? On your attempt, just your attempt, you will get credit. You'll get credit directly or indirectly, consciously or subconsciously. So I think it applies to both.
Yeah, and I think the core theme is confidence, authenticity. And when I was at Oracle, when I was an SDR, I would say, hey, Tim, honestly, I would be doing both of us, your business and our organization, a disservice if I tried to pitch you on our product. And honestly, we do so much across the board. We've got hundreds of tools and solutions. So I'd love to set you up with our account executive who talks to a lot of customers like you to have a deeper conversation. And even if there isn't a fit today, you'll learn a little bit more about what's going on in the market, and we'll have an open line of communication. So I think that, I don't know and tell me if that sounded too scripted, but I feel like that's authentic and you're owning up. I don't know of all the answers, but that is an example of an SDR, an entry level role, can just be authentic and be different and get a meeting. And tell me your thoughts on how that came across as my coach in today's
It comes across as you've made that call 1,000 times, right?
Yeah.
You're completely confident and comfortable with the messaging, right? The only thing you can do, because you're so comfortable with it, is from time to time, say the same thing a different way.
Okay.
Because sometimes that's all it takes, right? Because remember, we all get to the number 7. You may get there using 4 and 3. I may get there using 5 and 2, and someone could be using 6 and 1, but we all get to the same number. But if everybody's used to hearing 4 and 3, throw in a 6 and 1 once in a while.
You can't be perceived as better if you're not perceived as different. That's a concept, pattern interrupt, that, you're just trying to refresh them. And there was a guy I had on here, Corporate Bro, and he's created this whole persona and he's really awesome. And he was at Oracle like myself. That's where he cut his teeth in sales as a SDR. And he would also use some humor at the beginning of his calls. I know you'd probably rather be getting a root canal than receiving a cold call right now. But do you ever, are there any other examples of how you've thrown in humor?
I once upon a time, and I think I shared this story with you. We used to log our cold calls. It was, I'm that old, where we put it in a book. Hey, I called John Smith at XYZ company on this date, got his voicemail, right? So on my 16th week, I was leaving a voice message. And again, speaking of voicemails, I think you should leave them. I'm a big proponent of it, just not every time. You want to mix it up. Maybe you leave one every third call, every other call. And I got to the point during some of those calls where I would use a British accent, or what I thought was my best British accent, right? And I was starting to get to know the individual's voicemail, right? We were, really good friends. So on week 16, as I started to leave what was probably going to be my final shot, because I didn't have a number in my mind. I was burning out, as you could imagine.
Yeah.
Right. 16 is a long fucking time.
Yeah.
I can swear, right? Am I able to use
of course. We speak French on the channel. And in fact, the people who curse, I think, are the most authentic. So,
well, I have that in my book, by the way. That's at the very beginning, beginning.
Yeah.
So I started leaving the voice message on week 16. I said, I think the guy's name was Kevin. I said, Kevin, it's Jason. Hey, I just wanted to start. And right as I start to go, so he picks up the phone and he says, Jesus Christ, Sullivan, I cannot believe you're calling. I said, it's the 16th week. And I know it's the 16th week because I'm looking at my logbook right now and it says it's week 16. I was just about to give up. And he says to me, well, you got my attention, go. And what did I do? I shit my pants because I was nervous. I wasn't prepared. I didn't expect him to pick up the phone call. This was at the very beginning of my career. It was my first year in sales. I wasn't ready with my elevator pitch. And I just kind of said, I think that's a little bit too much pressure, Kevin, because I didn't know what else to say. And he started to laugh. I said, can we just chit chat for a couple minutes till I realize that I'm actually talking to a live person, right? Just to try to reduce it. And the guy turned to be out a wonderful guy. We talked for about 15 minutes. I expected to get 2 minutes, right? I got in there about 2 weeks later for an in-person meeting, and I picked up the account about 3 months later.
And that is applicable to anyone, even the entry level role. Even if you can't go in person, just to then get to a point where you built enough trust to set up a meeting with your account executive. And I think like through authenticity, you cut through the noise, and it's also just the way to escape competition when it comes to interview processes for jobs. It's authenticity and action in many ways are the answer. But anyways, go ahead.
You can connect with people. It's not ideal in texting, right? You can connect in text, whether it's an email, a LinkedIn message, a text via telephone. You can start to build a relationship. There are ways to do it. But if you don't take a chance, if your account executives or SDRs don't take some chances in trying to show some vulnerability and personality, right? Then they'll never get there, right?
And this is the reality of what does work. Because anytime I do try and sound scripted, or I think I'm smart coming out of a security training back in my Oracle days, and I thought I knew so much, all of a sudden I'd get cocky or I'd over talk, and people just buy from people they like and from real people. And, we're going to talk about 3 reasons why customers buy. We had talked about this one off, but before we get to that little teaser, let's talk about, we haven't hit on this, the best time to cold call. This is something people want to know.
Well, this is just personal for me. So I want to put that disclaimer out there, right? I'm sure there's some study or metric with all of the things that are going on with social media now. But for me, it's Fridays going backwards. First of all, let me start over. Never cold call on Monday. I would highly recommend against it for the obvious. Nobody wants to take them in the first place, let alone take them at the beginning of the week. They're hungover. They're dejected. They're pissed off. They got a long way to go. They don't want to talk to you. Use that as your preparation day, as your organizational day as a salesperson, as your strategic planning. So starting with Friday, 2 times a day. Friday is the best day. Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday. Again, this is for me personally. As far as those are the days in order. And the times of the day go like this: 11 a.m., 11:10, 11:15 a.m., and then 3:30 p.m. And my theory with that was always right before lunch. People are generally starting to get a little happy because they're going to get an hour break, plus or minus, right? From whatever they're doing. They're either going to go to some place where they're looking forward to what they're going to eat, or they're going to get away. They're going to go outside. They're going to get some fresh air. They're going to take their walk, whatever it is. So they're kind of coming down from the work mode. End of the day, they're 1 foot out the door. Okay. And what I found is this: on Fridays and Thursdays, especially, but Fridays really more than any other day. If you catch someone at 3:45, 4:15 p.m. and they're about to head out the door and they go, "Hey, Chris, thanks for the call. What can I do for you?" And you start and you go, "Hey, I know you're 15 feet from happy hour, right? I know you're going to have a great weekend. I was just calling to," and they go, "Hey, you know what? Why don't you give me a call next week?" That's gold because they've given you the invitation, right? And you're automatically going to call back the following week, not on Monday. And you're going to say, "Hey, called you last week. You told me to give you a call back. You were on your way out the door to happy hour," whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Now, I want to say this though about cold calling, and it may be different in tech because I have not ever sold in tech, but I will say this. When I cold call, it's generally to try to get an appointment to come in to see somebody, not to sell on the call, right?
Okay.
It's a two-step phase for me. So that first call for me is simply to go, hey, I don't need a lot of time. I'm calling from this company. This is what we do, right? I just wanted to see if I could call you back at a date and time for 5 minutes or 10 minutes and talk to you about what some of your pain points are, right? So it's a two-step kind of call approach for me. My first call is not to try to make a transaction, right? It's more to say, I want to see if I can catch you for 5 or 10 minutes to talk to you about this because I think it will be of value for this reason, right?
Yes.
So it's a little bit different. And I think a mistake that too many people make on the cold call is they want to get too much accomplished in call one, right?
Yes.
Call one should be short and your damn sweetest self it can be.
Yeah. Okay. Keep it concise. Don't
To.
overdo it and hook them for the next one. And in person is really the most powerful way to connect.
Absolutely.
If possible. Now, if you're an SDR in an entry level role, you're going to be setting a meeting for your account executive, and maybe you can get creative to try and leverage the opportunity to get your account executive to an in-person meeting, especially if they're local to the customer. But either way, applying your tips of being authentic, having a sense of humor, and being different will hook customers for meetings, even if they're virtual,
That's
right?
right.
And all you're trying to do is pique some curiosity and earn the opportunity to have a dialogue really on the same side of the table. So I wanted to ask you on a cold call, if you get some resistance and objections, which is almost all the time. It's like so rare that someone's like, yeah, I want to take a meeting right away. Any high level thoughts on principles for handling objections?
Yeah. So I've never been really good in this area for a couple reasons. My default was always, if someone doesn't sound like they're interested after you've told them what your purpose of your call is, let them go. Let them go. Now, you'll have a lot of sales managers that are going, oh, my God, you're walking away from all these potential opportunities, and you had an opportunity to take that no and make it a yes. And here's my thought, Chris. I look at myself. If you call me and you tell me your name and you say you're there to talk to me about vacuum cleaners, I'm just saying vacuum cleaners for the hell of it, and I know that I just bought a brand new Dyson and I love it, there's absolutely nothing you're going to be able to tell me. No objection override that's going to convince me to want to talk to you, right? Yeah. What I find is there's more value in you exiting gracefully and by going, hey, Chris, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I don't want to take any more time. I'm going to call back and see if things haven't changed in a few months. Now, I would imagine tech is pretty competitive. Is there a lot of people out there in that space?
There's a lot of people. And to your point, when, I think about when to follow up because technology changes all the time.
Right.
There might be an opportunity in the future, but yes, it's very competitive, especially in my space of being a cloud managed service provider. Yeah.
So here's my thought on handling objections. There are people that are expert at them, and you can read books and you can get a zig for a zag, and it makes you think and it hurts your brain because you have to wait for that objection to plug in the formula that you were told will work to overcome that objection. And if that's not yours authentically and organically, you may fumble the way you zig to that zag, when it's just better to just say, I'll call you back, right? I think if you can get off the phone with some personality and show somebody that, hey, now's not a good time and I'm not going to push it, you have more to gain there at coming back around 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years later, whatever the industry is, than trying to overcome an objection because someone has told you, don't walk away too quickly. I am very counterintuitive to the mainstream sales theory of, hey, stick it out, keep pushing, keep pushing. There's a very fine line there. And for me, I know when someone has my interest and I know when I'm interested in something very quickly. It's 2 reasons. It's because what you're selling me, I need, which doesn't take, you can be the worst salesperson in the world. And if you have what I need, I'm thirsty and you have water, I'm going to listen. Or you've presented yourself in such a way, differently, uniquely, authentically, creatively, being different. I want to listen because everybody who called me before, the other 15 calls I got were, hi, my name is Tom Smith and I'm from XYZ company and I would like to talk to you about my vacuum cleaner. No, right? I want to talk to you because you said, man, my house is full of dust. I don't know about yours. but let me tell you something. And you just start in on a story, right? Or something. And I go, this fucking guy's crazy, but I like him, right?
Yeah. Oh man, you definitely have our interest. We got a comment. Chris, this is amazing. Thank you. Learning so much. My head is exploding.
And
Exploding head emoji. So Jason, you are rocking it. Okay.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, this is so fun. I'm learning myself and I get to be a student myself in these conversations. So what are we going to talk about next? Let's talk about this. Okay. There's so many directions we could take it, but Chris Voss, we've got him, the top hostage negotiator in the world. He's got tactics for objection handling and negotiating. Yep. We've got all these people, these gurus out there with great tactics, but you seem to be contrarian to using tactics. And you seem to, in our conversation, think that there is a risk in trying to adopt other people's techniques. Tell us more about this perspective.
I think that there's nothing wrong with listening and trying to be your best and learning from other people. But I come from the school that if you try to emulate or copy somebody else, the best you'll ever get is copying someone else rather than understanding what they're trying to say to you and make it your own. And that is a subtle nuance. But I think too many new salespeople that are trying to be their best get confused. And if you scroll TikTok, and I'm sure some of your audience has, and you find these, and once you get on one, you get the other 500 of them coming up. Once you get on one will tell you to go right for 30 seconds. The very next one will say, no, go left for 15 seconds. And you just end up getting yourself more confused. And I want your audience to know that it takes time and practice to make those mistakes like we talked about, and not to come down too hard on yourself, because if you want to be a professional salesperson, it's going to take some time and a lot of trial and error. I was always told this: if you have an objection to the sale process, you made a mistake at some point of your sales process. That's what I was always told.
Tell us more about that, or maybe give us an example.
If you follow the basic methodology of doing your discovery, making sure you learn all you can about the potential target, right? Because you obviously don't want to call a plumber if you're selling, eyeglasses. Or, I could have came up with a better example. You don't want to,
they might need eyeglasses, actually.
They very well might. Exactly.
No, but I love what you're saying. You need to be focused on the right targets. Otherwise you're wasting your time. It doesn't matter how good you are. If you're calling the wrong people,
doesn't matter. Focus on those targets, prepare yourself for discovery, have your questions ready. Present yourself in relationship build. And my whole formula is to build the relationship. You had said it earlier. To be likable is really the secret to sales. And because people do buy from people they like, that is absolutely my mantra. That's how I've existed. I've lived that. I've walked the walk. I talk that talk. And I think that if you develop the relationship and earn the trust, and developing trust can be, sometimes that term I found confusing. Maybe your listeners will too, because how do you get someone to trust you quickly? The word almost seems counterintuitive to the relationship building process when it's new. And it can be something as simple as saying, Chris, we're going to talk at 1:00 today. And I call you at 12:59, right? As long as I call you at 12:59 or 12:58, I'm increasing trust. The second I call you at 1:01, I've went the other way, right? I've went the other way. So if you are hitting all those notes, being the best authentic person you can be, being on time, doing what you say what you're going to do, by the time you get to the end of your sales process, if you've educated the person on your product or your service, there won't be an objection, because at some point during your sales process, you talked about the costing. You talked about the cost, right? You asked the questions. Are there going to be other decision makers in this? So no one hits you with that, one that breaks all of our spirits, like, yeah, my boss said it's too expensive, right? And everybody just goes, oh, it's just too expensive, right? There's a certain flow of getting to the final stages where if you have an objection, then you didn't do something earlier, right? There's no such thing as a close. I think your audience has probably heard this, right? You don't need to close if you actually work the sales process.
Amen. And, I posted on a deal that closed while I was, I don't know how many thousand feet up on an airplane. And I've had deals close when I was on a roller coaster in Universal Studios. And that's because it's not about I've never had a deal in my 9 years, and I don't have nearly as much experience as you, where I closed them in that moment. I said the perfect thing to get them over the edge. It was because of doing all the little things right, being a man of integrity, doing what I said I would do, building that trust, being on time, understanding their needs, having empathy. And ultimately, that groundwork led to the deal inevitably closing. So you really painted a picture of that and what that looks like.
Now, are there ways you can handle objections? Absolutely. You can Google search right now. What are the top 5 ways you can put into this, your AI? I think that's becoming really popular. What are the top 5 ways to overcome an objection? An SDR and an account executive in tech, you can punch that right in and they'll spit right back out those 5 to you. And what I want your audience to know is this: the moment you do that, so have the other 413,000 account executives and SDRs in tech. And they're going to spit the same way, the same words, the same order. They're going to go 1 through 5 just like they learned them. And all you're going to get is you're going to be in a sea of sameness with everybody else. If you can find a way to somehow be different at every phase, every contact, every touch point, you're going to be memorable.
I don't want to be swimming in a sea of sameness. I want to be diving into difference, baby. Munira said, "This is gold," all caps. And she is absolutely right. What are the 3 reasons why customers buy?
Now, this again is not my original. I've been told this. I'm a firm believer. You may have audience members that see this different, but I think this is, I would put this in cement. So people buy from people for 3, and these 3 reasons. First, they buy from their rep. And that means you, the SDR, the account executive in this example, right?
Amen.
The relationship that you've built or that you're building. The things you've done to get the person to want you as the person. The second reason they buy is your company's reputation. Now, I don't know, but some tech companies might be a little bit more reputable than others for whatever reason. That's the second reason. And then the third reason is the solution. Your answer, your solution, your service is better. Now, that's counterintuitive. The average person would be, what? Wait a minute. You mean to tell me that I may have the best solution, but I'm the third reason somebody buys? Absolutely. Yep. Because, and there's a book called The Little Red Book of Sales by Jeffrey Gitmer, I think is how you say his last name.
Okay.
And the quote is this, and I happen to love quotes. Absolutely love them. And the quote is, and it's my most favorite quote for all sales, and it's very simple. It goes, "All things being equal, people buy things from people they like. And all things being absolutely unequal, people still buy things from people they like." And here's how it works. You may have a better solution for your clients than me, but they'll call me if they like me and trust me and say, "Hey, one of your competitors was just in here. They did a presentation and here's their solution for our problem. Can you guys do that? Can you guys do that, Jason?" Because they're going to say this. Sometimes they'll say, "Because I'd rather buy from you, Chris, than this other person that just came in, because I've worked with you for 6 months, 6 years, 16 years." Or they're just going to do it because they haven't really got there yet with you. That's when you know the relationship is starting to gellify, to gel, to become.
I love that word, gellify.
Right? When somebody says this, "Hey, we had another competitor come in here and they said they could do this. Could you guys do that?" That's it. When you hear something like that, Chris, you've already done something to make them like you and want you.
We've got folks in the audience that are just launching their career in tech sales.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to grind. That's the tuition. Yeah. It's the tuition for success.
That's right.
But you're going to have the opportunity to start to build authentic relationships. And eventually, 9 years in, as is the case for me, and even further down the path like yourself, will have such good relationships that you're riding in the back of a CTO's Aston Martin, having, a great time, and you have customers that will go with you wherever you go, company-wise, and that will do what you just described and will actually give you a shot when the competition is knocking at their door. And that is the power of relationships, and what our mutual friend Tom Singer, who introduced us to, would also validate. He always says all opportunities are tied to people.
That's
so
correct.
Don't you think like the relationships we build are our most strategic asset, or at least one of them?
The most strategic. And if there's one thing I could impart on anybody, it would be that the soft skills are so much, not to put no pun on the words here, but technical skills are much less important than soft skills. This is my, contention. This is the book. This is why I wrote it, because
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, you can find a technical expert and you can replace him or her in a New York minute. You can take somebody from MIT and replace them with somebody from Stanford. But if that individual has soft skills at their core and they're very good, if they have the empathy, if they have the relationship building, if they have that emotional intelligence, those are the people that we want in our life. Those are the people that we want in our personal life. They're the people that we want in our professional life. Okay. Now, they happen to be a lot of times mutually exclusive. Tech people and soft skill people generally are of different camps. A lot of your engineers, for example, just to take a stereotypical example, they're not your extroverted life of the party types, right?
Yes.
To give a wild example. And when you get one that is, and they're out there and I've met them, we call them a purple squirrel, right? They're unique. You hang on to them because they have both. They have those interpersonal relationship building skills. They have good listening skills, all this. And see, the great thing about soft skills is they can be learned. So if you have somebody who feels they're strong in one area but not good in another, it's just like shooting a basketball. You can become better at shooting free throws if you shoot 1,000 a day or 100 a day.
And
right?
you just captured the heart and soul of this channel. Why does it matter to start and grow a career in tech sales? Because it's a vehicle to developing the soft skills that can change your life.
Yep.
You take who you are and your technical skill set and your strengths, and you throw in soft skills, which are learnable. And that is a true differentiator. And you can create a life of freedom and impact through the, financial freedom, amazing relationships that open up doors, and you make cold calls and brush up against the edge of who you are and become the best version of you. And feel free to riff on that. But that's the heart and soul of this channel, and why a guest like you is so perfect.
And it is because at the end of the day, whoever you meet, it could be someone having a cup of coffee next to you in Starbucks, someone on an airplane. It could be a custodian at your kid's school. You never know anything about them, who they are, to have a sincere interest and curiosity about people and just be sincere and authentic and a good person. And those sound like canned words. And we're all raised, or most of us have the opportunity where a mom or a dad tries to instill those things. We begin to take that for granted. We get tone deaf. But you can look at any significant relationship in your life, anyone, personal and professional, and their soft skills are why you want to call them. They're why they're on your favorites list in your phone. They're why they pop up first in your messaging. It's because of their soft skills. And if you build relationships sincerely and you keep them, I can't tell you how many sales guys I knew that built a good relationship with somebody to make the sale. And when they lost the business, because ladies and gentlemen, you will lose business. Okay. You will. When they lost the business, they let the relationship go. Why would you ever do that? Do you know how great it is when you lose business to pick up the phone and say, hey, Chris, I'm going to come take you to lunch. And when Chris, you say back to me, Jay, are you serious? Why? Well, what do you mean why? Well, I had to pull the business from you 3 months ago. Okay. Does that mean that the 3 years we did business, all the times we went to lunch, I didn't like talking to you? I still want to hear about your wife, Kelly. I still want to hear about the kids. Last we talked, they were in the soccer championship, right? And you pick up the relationship for no other reason than the sincerity of the relationship. If you approach it from a sales standpoint, that business is a tit for tat, you'll never break through that sincerity and really get to where you want to go, right?
Yeah, this is perfect for me to hear, because I have a bunch of Thanksgiving well wishes or notes that I'm going to be sending. I'm going to be going on a gratitude rampage. This is a thing I came up with, reaching out to customers and just not only sharing gratitude, but something specific and personal to them that I'm grateful for. It might be cheesy, but things like that over time are seeds that are planted that bloom into a rock solid relationship. Where, as you described, the competition comes knocking at their door, but they come to you and give you that opportunity.
How many of those, Chris, roughly are you going to send? Do you have an idea at all?
That's actually a good question. When it comes to customers, there could be around 20 or
Okay.
so that I think of
So
top of mind. And then I've got partners at, Google and AWS who actually they're like my customer because I'm at a consultant. So it's interesting. It's almost like a three-way
right.
type. It's a joint partnership deal, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
there's folks there, there's mentors, folks like yourself. Now we just met, and so there's going to be a lot of gratitude and thank
Let me
yous
ask
going
you
out.
this, if you don't mind me giving you a suggestion. Take that list, let's say it's 30. Take the 10, maybe divide it into 3. Ones that you feel are somewhat warm, ones that are completely freezing cold, and ones that are in the middle, right? And why not take it? What would be the problem if you dialed someone at noon tomorrow on Thanksgiving between meals, between feedings? You're going to get their voicemail. Am I right?
Yeah.
What's this sound like? Hey, Chris, it's Thanksgiving. I know I probably shouldn't have called, but I knew you weren't going to pick up. I hope you're having a great day. I just wanted to say thank you so much. You were wonderful to take that meeting for me. I've really enjoyed working with you, and I just wanted to say happy Thanksgiving. No need to text or anything. I knew you weren't going to pick up. It was purposeful, but you're important enough for me to give you a call on Thanksgiving. Thank you. A version of that, right? I'm shooting right from the hip.
Love it.
Why couldn't you do that instead of sending an email or a LinkedIn message or a text? Why not let them hear your voice, the sincerity of your voice, right? Because I'll tell you what's going to happen. Your competitors are going to send a text message. Hey, Chris, hope you're having a great Thanksgiving. Thanks for everything so far in 2023. That's good. If you want to be different, pick up the phone. Risk somebody picking up the phone on Thanksgiving. And if they do, you go, oh, shit. I did not expect you to pick up. Tell your family I'm some whatever. And I just wanted to tell you from my heart this message and get off the phone. It takes 14 seconds.
I like that because I just thought I got a little nervous. Like, what if they did pick up? And honestly, there's no big deal because some of these relationships are really rock solid. But that's a good example of how to handle it.
And for anyone listening, if you did take a chance and someone did pick up and they were pissed off because you called them on Thanksgiving, you're going to get off that phone real quickly with an apology, but just said, I never expected you to pick up. I thought it might leave a better impression if I actually called you on a day that's very meaningful to my family, and I'm sure it is to yours, but you've been wonderful. You're a big part of my 2024 plans, and I just wanted to say thank you. Boom. That is going to defuse any type of agitation. And here's what I say, Chris, to your listeners. If someone is offended, sincerely offended that you would reach out for 14 seconds to say thank you on Thanksgiving, do you really want to do business with them? Are you really going to develop a relationship with that person? Because those kinds of people, and this is what happens when you're 54 years old and you've been making cold calls and developing relationships for 25 years.
And you still
find
make
a way
them.
to go like this. Fuck them, right? That's not someone that I want to work with anyhow. If they're that tight, if they're wound that tight that they can't take a deep breath and go, you know what, Chris, thanks for calling, man. I really appreciate it. You have a wonderful Thanksgiving. That's the kind of person I am. That's the kind of person I want to work with. That's the kind of person I'm going to go above and beyond for. When you're new to sales, we have this theory where that we're just going to eat shit from everybody because you have to. Now, there is a fine line between being professionally persistent and eating shit, right? But the reality is, and I say this in my book, and it has to do with profanity. And you know how we talked about it earlier?
Yeah.
And I say this in like the first 5 pages of my book. If you use a swear word in an initial conversation, and this has only happened to me once in my life where someone said, please don't use profanity, right? Would you really want to spend a lot of time trying to relationship build with that person if you're someone who swears casually and occasionally either for fun or effect? Do you really want someone like that to be putting in a cadence every week when you know that you've offended their sensibilities because you used the word shit, or God forbid you said fuck, and they were so offended? And the reality is, in tech, you have thousands, 10,000s of customers. And I will say this to your audience. If you are a salesperson in tech, there is an abundance of great jobs out there right now on LinkedIn because I get them in my inbox daily. And 93% of the higher paying salaries are for tech sales people. It's
That
the
puts it
future.
in perspective.
It's the future.
And so another thing we talked about earlier, aside from profanity, is checking in on time. We're at 59 minutes. And so do we have permission to go a couple minutes more, up to 5 minutes more, to round out the conversation?
If your audience isn't tired of listening to me, I'm happy to, Chris. I'm grateful to you and to anyone listening for the time.
Yeah, no, this has been amazing. And shout out to CT, who I just want to acknowledge CT for activity in the comments saying never lie to people to make a sale. And we could open up a whole can of worms, but let's acknowledge that's a great comment right there. And sometimes it actually makes sense to walk away from a deal or push it out if your company or solution isn't quite ready to meet their needs and you're not in integrity. So CT, thanks for the comments and for showing up. Shout out to Des as well. Thanks for showing up. You rock. Okay, 2 more things and we'll round it out. I wanted to share the email that got a meeting with a $38 billion company, a grocer HEB, that you inspired. Now, I made it my own. I threw in my own authenticity, like you said, but I applied your core principles. I'm going to read it to the audience in case it sparks ideas, and also get your coaching and observation on why it might have been effective. So Samit was the prospect, a leader managing data analytics for HEB. So I said, Samit, circling back, I'd like to take you to coffee or lunch at some point after Thanksgiving if you can find time. I want to introduce myself and our company. In parentheses, we help other companies running on AWS and GCP with cost optimization, professional services, and MSP, so you can keep us in your back pocket for the future. The reality is that being a big HEB customer, which I am, and having the best services and solutions isn't enough. And if I don't get any face time to show you I'm a decent guy, you'll never buy from me. That said, would you be open to a coffee or grabbing a bite in early December? After that, if you felt it was a waste of your time, you can tell me to take a hike. Best, Chris.
Okay. So first of all, you personalized it. You separated yourself because you basically said, I need to see you in person, coffee or lunch. I need you to touch, see, and feel me metaphorically to realize I'm someone that you're going to want to do business with, right?
Yeah.
You also said, I'm not in a rush. Okay. You said that without saying it. I want you to meet me so we can take this love affair and start one slow date at a time. I'm not trying to kiss you on the first date here, right?
Yes.
Let's just get together. Let's have coffee, which is always great because coffee translates to what? Lunch means 30 to 60 minutes. Coffee means 15 to 30 minutes, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
And so the other thing too, I just want to call out, is reducing pressure so that you can keep us in your back pocket as an option for the future. So there's no pressure that we need to partner all of a sudden after one coffee.
That was my note.
Secondly, at the end I said, hey, if there isn't a fit, you can tell me to take a hike, which is a little comical, but the customers love to be in control and be able to feel like they have permission to say no. So I just wanted to share that, and you inspired it, and you could sense that your concepts of authenticity, acknowledging that people only buy from people they like, and regardless of if we have the best solution, which I did say, you're not going to buy from me unless we get along. Yeah. I applied your principles. So thank you. And if I do convert this into a deal with a $38 billion company, there's a big upside. I'm going to give you a cut, and I'm taking you to lunch.
Absolutely not. No. Listen, letting me talk to your audience is more than gracious. But I want to say the other thing you said there, which is important for your audience to know, is you told them you're an HEB customer, right?
Yes.
And
nice catch.
It's nice to be able to plug that in when you can, right?
Yeah.
And you know, it spurns something that I want to throw this tidbit at, and hopefully some of the people listening, if not all, have heard this, but someone once told me, they said, hey, Sully, if you get someone to go to lunch with you, that's good, right? But you do realize they're getting paid from their workday to go to lunch, right? Now, if you get them to go to happy hour or dinner or something on the weekends when it's their personal time and they're cutting into their girlfriend, their boyfriend, their wife, their kids, their family, that says something wholly other, right?
Yes, it absolutely does. So one thing to round it out, I want to end with some inspiration, and you just naturally are wired that way. You're an inspiring guy, but we had talked, and you're fulfilling on your dreams. You're writing a book, feather sharpens iron, or you've written it and it's coming out soon.
Yep.
And you're sharing your gifts with people. But you said, Chris, I'm 54, and I think 54, right? And I could have started sooner. So do you have any message for the audience on instilling an urgency to really pursue their dreams and live fully right here, right now?
The cruelest probably the cruelest thing about life is we think we have enough time. And it doesn't matter how many older people tell younger people, don't do it this way, don't do that, don't do that. It's like when you have your first child, don't touch the stove, it's hot. They got to touch the stove to burn their hand to realize it's hot. And by the time you've done that, you're 30, you're 35, you're 45. And if only you'd have done it when you were 23, 24, right? If I were to say nothing else, Chris, it would be this: relationship building, to be sincere about it. There is no better investment in your future, both professionally, but also personally. And I wrote the book, and it's coming out right before Christmas, and I'm excited.
What's the date? What's the date it's coming out?
That goes up now. I asked a friend to do my formatting and layout. So if any of your audience ever wants to write a book, have them give me a call, and I'll tell them all the trial and error and all the things I did wrong. But I asked a friend to help, so I'm at her cadence. The book's been written. I'm just waiting for the images and the layout. Probably December 20th, on or about. It'll be on Amazon. And again, I wrote it because it was the set of skills that got me through. I had no technical skill, challenged completely in my industry. Technical skills I should have had for years, and I just didn't. But my soft skills got me through, and I realized we're in a world where people are sitting behind their computer, they're sitting behind their phone, there isn't interpersonal connectivity, and those things can get dull and rusty, if not foreign to 20-somethings, early 20-somethings. Those are the skills that make the difference. And if you're in tech sales, you can be the most technically proficient. You can know all the data, all the metrics, know your product front to back. But if you don't have soft skills, you're going to lose the sale to someone who does. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Jason, what an insightful, fun, inspiring conversation. Thank you for your time today. Thank you to the audience who has shown up live. We got 9 people here right now. You guys rock. You guys are going to do big things. And make sure to keep an eye out for Feather Sharpens Iron. What a great name, coming out around December 20th. We'll see if your person who's putting together the details stays in line, and I'm sure they will. I am super excited. I'm going to get a copy myself, and this means we're going to have you on again.
And I appreciate that, Chris, and everybody else for listening. It means the world to me. Sincerely, this is really cool for me. Thank you.
To your success, guys, in tech sales and in life and broader sales.
Yes.
Looking forward to see you in the next one. You guys rock.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
All right.
All right. Cheers.
Bye-bye.